Celebrations of the summer solstice date back to some of the earliest known civilizations. Stonehenge was estimated to have been built around 2500 BCE, and while its purpose is unknown, it is speculated to be an ancient solar calendar, as the entrance faces the rising sun on the day of summer solstice. One of the most extravagant celebrations can be found in Sweden, where midsummer gatherings are celebrated with decor, dancing, food, and drinks. Perhaps such importance was placed on this time of year because of Sweden's high latitude on the globe, allowing what is known as the midnight sun, where daylight can be observed even in the middle of the night. The Swedish tradition of celebrating the longest day of the year is believed to have started in the 1500s as a pagan festival of fertility and light. These celebrations may have coincided with Vikings and sailors returning home from their voyages and mingling with the women for the first time in a while, and it became tradition to erect what is known as the maypole, which young women were meant to dance around in a circular motion. I'm sure you can figure out the symbolism there on your own. As with any ancient tradition, lore and folktales began to be associated with it. In one countryside community known as Hårga, a song called Hårgalåten was associated with the maypole dance. This song is based on a 1785 folktale about the devil disguised as a fiddler who possessed the young to dance and dance until they collapsed and died. Basically the earliest known version of that one Yeah 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 song. The Midsummer celebration, the Hårga, the maypole, and the Hårgalåten are all real cultural phenomena, as you may have figured out if you're a fan of the Swedish metal band In Flames, who covered Hårgalåten in 1994. But the cult scene in the 2019 movie, Midsommar, have certain traditions that don't reflect the real-life Hårga, namely human sacrifice. In the movie, the dance has evolved into sort of a competition to crown the last dancer standing as the May Queen, and in 2019, one traumatized girl finds herself thrust into the festivities. To learn the entire history of the May Queen, which aspects of Swedish folklore are inspired from real life, and the meaning behind all the insanity that is Midsummer, stick around to the end of this video. Welcome to Hårga History. Midsummer was directed by Ari Aster, fresh off the heels of his 2018 breakout film Hereditary, which also dealt with the world of pagan cults. According to Thrillist, Aster decided on Hårga as the location for his sophomore movie primarily because he was inspired by the Hårgalåten, even though he doesn't specifically use that song during the ceremony. It's always more fun to tether it to something tangible, Aster explains, but then, you know, you do run the risk of the real thing being confused for whatever you've done. And that's why I'm here to sort it all out. To understand the Hårgan cult, we've got to take it back to the strange tradition centered around the Black One. It was here, long ago, that the Black One lured the youths of Hårga to the grass and seduced them into dance. Once they began, they could not stop and danced themselves to death. Now, in life-holding defiance of the Black One, we dance until we fall, and she who survives last will be crowned for her stamina. This is the explanation given each year at the beginning of the May Queen ceremony. I would assume that the Black One is not talking about Josh, but rather the devil himself. In the traditional Swedish folk song, there are several clues to suggest that the fiddler is demonic. When he pulled out his fiddle, the people of Hårga got excited and forgot God and the whole world. Another verse describes the narrator noticing that the fiddler has a hoof, a common trait in many depictions of the devil. The song describes a sudden premature death for the dancers, and Midsummer begins with the sudden premature death of the protagonist's sister, Terri Ardor, and her parents, due to intentional carbon monoxide poisoning. In her final email to her sister, Terri writes, "I can't anymore. Everything's black. Mom and dad are coming too. Goodbye." And while this reads kind of like a changed a world meme, it's interesting that she describes everything as black, and I wonder if this could be referring to the Black One. There's also the fact that Dani has a dream where black smoke billows from her mouth before seeing the image of her family replacing the deceased cultists at the bottom of the cliff. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The traditions of the Hårgan cult were established long before Terri or Dani were even born. In their society, they see the entire community as a family, and individuality is not important. When a baby is born, it is raised by everyone. It's not just the responsibility of the parents. This is not necessarily the case today in Hårga, but it is true that for most of human history, we traveled in tribes and babies were taken care of communally. However, the Hårgan cult in Midsummer takes the focus on community to new extremes. Everyone works together, and jobs are assigned based on traits shown in childhood. Meals are cooked for the entire cult and consumed as one, and even positive or negative emotions are supposed to be experienced in a group setting as a whole unit, rather than burdening them individually. Even copulation takes place in a group, with several family members singing the joys of conception alongside the person engaging in the act. Interpersonal relationships are rejected in favor of group love among everyone. They mostly dress in all white, so that no individual person's style can distract from the unity of the group. They have special costumes that they wear for each winter and summer solstice, but because the entire movie takes place during the festival, it's not known how different these clothes are from whatever day-to-day garb that they wear for the rest of the year. During Midsummer at least, elders wear genderless dress robes, which are inspired by the hermaphroditic qualities found in nature. For example, a berry tree has both male and female components and is able to flower, self-pollinate, and drop seeds all on its own. It may be no coincidence that when outsiders enter the village, they're given strawberries to snack on. Since the cult views itself as one big unit and contains both male and female members, the cult sees itself as being hermaphroditic in a way. Strawberries can reproduce both sexually and asexually, and the cult takes a similar approach. They bring in outsiders to impregnate their women when they become of age in order to prevent birth defects caused by low gene variation, but they also calculatedly approve one incestuous birth per generation. The result is an inbred child with physical and mental deformities, who the Hårga ascribe as their oracle. Because of his or her disability, the oracle is considered to be unclouded by normal cognition.
It makes him open for the source.
The oracle paints abstract images onto this holy book, and the elders interpret the renderings as the basis for their religion. It's not clear if the elders really believe that they're interpreting the word of God through these paintings, or if this is a ruse in order to give the illusion of higher power, while they're the ones actually in control. Judging by the paintings themselves, I'm leaning towards the latter. Despite this one exception, incest is still considered taboo, and the elders must approve any mates in order to properly preserve bloodlines. But cousins are apparently fine for them. So, kinda weird. Another aspect of their lives that has a basis in nature is their life cycles themselves. Every milestone in a Hårgan's life is predetermined, and the rituals performed at each of these milestones may be shocking to outsiders. Are you tired of mediocre audio ruining your movie watching experience? Then listen up, because I've got a game changer for you. These are Raycon earbuds. They're the perfect way to immerse yourself in your favorite horror films like never before. With Raycons, you can hear every bone-chilling sound and scream in crystal clear quality, just like the filmmakers intended. And here's the best part. Raycon started half the price of other premium audio brands, so you don't have to choose between quality and affordability. Plus, with their sleek design and comfortable fit, you can wear them all day long, whether you're watching movies, working out, or just chilling at home. Raycon earbuds can block out background noise with passive noise isolation, keeping you fully immersed in your audio. By holding down the right button, you can toggle between noise isolation mode and awareness mode. In fact, it's easy to control your music without ever taking out your phone. You can control volume, pause, track skipping, answer and reject calls, or activate the voice assistant and more. And if you're ready to upgrade your audio game, I've got a special offer for you. Click the link in the description or go to buyraycon.com/CZsWorld to get 15% off your Raycon purchase. This is a small purchase with a big impact, and you won't regret it. That's buyraycon.com/CZsWorld for 15% off the already affordable price. Get yours today. The lifespan of each cult member is broken into seasons. Much like Weezer, they decided to start with spring.
You're a child until you're 18, and that's spring. And then at some point we all do our pilgrimage, which is between 18 and 36, and that's summer. And then from 36 to 54, we're a working age, which is fall. And then finally from 54 to 72, you become a mentor.
You may or may not notice that their lives are broken up in 18-year increments. More specifically, each milestone is a multiple of 9, and the number 9 holds a huge significance to them. Much like how the number 8 keeps coming up in Aster's previous film Hereditary, the number 9 appears over and over again in Midsummer. The Midsummer festival in the movie is celebrated over 9 days, as opposed to 6 in real life. The events in the film also take place during the special anniversary known as the Great Feast that only occurs every 90 years.
It has been 90 years since our last great feast, and it will be 90 years before our next.
In one scene, Mark freaks out when he sees the sun is still out at 9 p.m. Finally, there are 9 human sacrifices. I've seen it suggested by multiple sources online, primarily Signal Horizon, that the number 9 is tied closely to Norse mythology. In that lore, there are 9 realms. The god Odin hung himself in the Tree of Life for 9 days. Aegir and Ran, the god and goddess of the sea, had 9 daughters. The thunder god Thor took 9 steps after winning his final battle before collapsing dead. It goes on and on like this. I'm not John Solo, I'm not going to list them all. The Hårgan life cycle ends at age 72, where, during the Midsummer festival, a ritual scene-aside called Ättestupa is performed at the top of a cliff. Because everything they do is for the benefit of the cult, it's considered an honor to do this, because the elders know that they'll never grow old enough to where caring for them becomes a burden. There's some debate as to whether or not Ättestupa rituals really took place in the 1600s in Sweden, or if this was merely a myth. But it's definitely not a part of Midsummer celebrations today. Sweden has affordable healthcare. Speaking of money, there's obviously not any legal tender in Hårga, because the Hårgans don't subscribe to the concept of personal ownership. However, I'm guessing there is a pool of money shared by the entire cult. After all, there would need to be some money for the pilgrimage that each member embarks on upon turning 18. There is mention of some trade with people outside the family.
How do you support this place?
Lumbering, linen, homeopathics, water power plants.
They must bring in a lot of money with that, considering Pelle goes to NYU, where the tuition was $53,000 a year in 2019. Or, you know, maybe he just got a Pelle grant. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go perform Ättestupa. Okay, I'm back. Basically, the next order of business after the level 72s learn about fall damage is the crowning of the May Queen. The reason you probably clicked on this video. As I mentioned, the last woman left dancing is the winner. What I may have forgotten to mention is that they aren't literally dancing until death, you just dance until you fall down. But in order to make this possible, the participants drink a special herbal tea with hallucinogenic properties. It makes them see things, and they fall. Lol. This is another similarity to the cult in Hereditary, who used herbal tea to make their subjects more receptive to communication with spirits and demons. It's all there in my King Payman video, which you can watch later after you're done watching this video. For once in your life, finish what you started. When only one girl remains, everyone celebrates and she's crowned with an even more elaborate and colorful flower crown, then placed on a pedestal and paraded to the dinner table, where she sits at the flower throne at the head of the table. There, she's expected to eat a full salt herring whole for good luck. Pickled herring is a real traditional Swedish midsummer recipe, and it is said to be good luck, not just in Sweden, but in many Nordic countries. I think the idea of having to swallow it whole in front of everyone was probably invented for the movie, and I'll get into why a little bit later. After dinner, the May Queen is taken around on a chariot to bless the crops and livestock for the upcoming year. The torch is literally and figuratively passed to her, and she says a blessing over some freshly buried seeds, meats, and eggs. This is all very important in relation to the cult's beliefs, because they have accepted the idea of a circle of life. Since lives have just been sacrificed, the blessing to sprout new crops and birth new livestock is the next step in the cycle. Each midsummer, the process is repeated and a new queen is named. At some point in the 1900s, it became tradition to photograph the May Queen and display the photo by a window in the main house, where all of the younger ones, up to age 36, sleep. There are 30 photos shown in the year that Dani comes to Sweden, which I have no choice but to believe is 2019, the same year that the movie came out, because we're given no indication otherwise. But many of these photos are in black and white or sepia, and they look like they may be older than 1989. They don't seem to be in any particular order. For example, the previous year's photo is right here. So these may not be all of the photos, and the photo tradition may stretch back further than 30 years. If we're calling the midsummer shown in the movie 2019, then the previous May Queen would have been named in 2018.
Whoa, who's that one?
That's last year's May Queen.
Beautiful.
There's some debate as to who this is because it's kind of hard to tell from the photo. Some believe it's Ulla, the woman who opens Christian's eyes at the end of the movie. Others have said that it's Hannah, the one to pass the torch to Dani after she becomes the May Queen. There's also a possibility that she isn't around during the events of Midsummer for whatever reason. At the end of the day, we can't really see her face, and like the list of female leads in Alfred Hitchcock movies, they're practically all young blonde women. At the very least, we do know that there are former May Queens still in the cult.
We should go now to Siv's house.
What's this?
It's a special meeting only for the queens.
So that catches us up to present day, or, 2019. But to understand the 2019 queen, we've got to take it back to her birth. Wait, we already did that transition. Danielle Ardor may have been born on June 25th, 1994. We know her birthday is on her second day in Sweden, and on her first day in Sweden, Ingemar greets Pelle in Swedish. However, if we look at the script, this is written in English. He says, Happy St. John's. St. John's Day is one of the days of Midsummer and takes place on June 24th. I don't speak Swedish, but if that line is in the movie, then Dani was born on the 25th. Her birth year in 1994 is not 100% official. We don't know her exact age, but the script introduces her as a 25-year-old. Let's take that with a grain of salt, because the script goes on to say that she is a beautiful but delicate brunette, so obviously changes were made. One thing that was not changed is her last name, Ardor. The name is derived from Latin roots. One definition of ardor refers to passion and fervent love. Another, more literal definition refers to flame, fire, or heat. It's a perfect name because Dani is a character who is betrayed by her love, then literally sets him on fire. As mentioned, Dani has a sister named Terri, who has a bad case of bipolar disorder, resulting in numerous panic attacks that are a constant source of stress for Dani. Potentially driven to help her ill sister, Dani attends NYU as a psychology student. Disaster would soon strike the Ardor family, and it would come under very suspicious circumstances. In June 2015, Dani began dating an anthropology student named Christian Hughes. Or should I say, Christian Hughes. Dani pronounces his name the same way that Pelle does, with a Swedish accent. I've noticed that the other friends don't do this. This could be one of the earliest clues that she's eventually going to join the cult and become one with the Hårga. Does this mean that Pelle is actually the mastermind who controlled everything from the very beginning? I don't think so. I think Ari Aster put in a lot of details for the audience that aren't meant to be used as evidence that the cult was behind every little thing, like in Hereditary. In fact, there's an interview on Huff in-depth post where Aster is questioned about the theory that Pelle was responsible for the deaths of Dani's parents, where he says that it's totally incorrect. Dani and Christian's relationship issues spout from the heavy emotional reliance she has on him. For all you terminally online little freaks, you may know this as trauma dumping.
Trauma dumping, if you will.
Christian debates breaking up with her over this, but puts those plans on hold after her trauma suddenly becomes much more valid. On December 18th, she starts receiving especially weird emails from Terri. The first is a link to this National Geographic video, the first 3D VR video filmed in space. The video talks about how being on a satellite and seeing 16 sunrises a day messes up your internal body clock.
It's strange. Your body doesn't know what time it is. There's no natural way to tell whether it's day or night.
I think this is meant to show a parallel between what the astronauts feel with no concept of day or night and how Dani, Christian, Mark, and Josh feel in Sweden, when they still see the sun out at midnight. Again, I think this is here for the audience. I don't think Terri somehow knew that Dani would go to Sweden. She sends another YouTube link the next day. This one is another National Geographic video, a relaxing live stream of the Yellowstone River. Yellow is the color that represents rebirth and the cycle of life. The flowers that can be seen all over Hårga are yellow flowers called St. John's wort. This is no mistake. The script specifically calls out the bright yellow petals of these flowers. Dani passes through the yellow sun gate into the village where her relationship with Christian would end and her life with her new family would begin. Her birthday cake has a yellow candle, literally tying it to birth. According to the cult, birth and death are directly connected, which is why we also see the color yellow connected to death. The hose Terri attached to the exhaust pipe was yellow, and she passed away in a yellow shirt. The parents went to sleep for the final time on yellow pillowcases. Dani's apartment when she's in mourning is totally covered in yellow, from the pillows to her blanket and lampshade. And of course, the sacrificial temple that is burned at the end of the movie is yellow. Coldplay must be going nuts right now. Judging by the dates of all of the emails and calls, it appears to be about December 24th when Dani gets that scary email from Terri, who stops responding at that point. After getting the news about the death of her family, Dani calls Christian and she can be heard wailing over the phone. Remember that sound. Christian does his best to be there for her, but he's just one person, and he's already lost interest in the relationship. Supporting her through this tragedy is a big burden on him. Dani is given the rest of the school year off in order to recover, and her and Christian stay together for several more months. Although it's on hold for now, the writing is still on the wall for the end of their relationship. Literally. In Dani's apartment, there's a painting of a girl in a crown kissing a bear, foreshadowing Dani's eventual crowning as the May Queen and Christian's fate being burned alive in a bear costume. There's also a painting of these two moons, which seems to be connected to the lunar cycle and strange passage of time, as I mentioned earlier. Another shows a woman running naked through a forest. We later see Christian running naked after realizing he's cheated on Dani. Both of these paintings are shown in winter, the opposite of summer. If you take the opposite of both paintings, you have two suns and a man running naked, which makes a lot more sense for the movie. Maybe I'm over speculating, but it feels like there's something there. In the late spring, we see a picture on the door of Dani's apartment that kind of resembles Maya, the Swede that Christian would eventually cheat on her with. In June 2019, Dani is napping and wakes up just in time to go to a small party with Christian and his friends. She learns that Pelle has invited Josh to go to Sweden to study their culture for his thesis, and Mark and Christian are going as well. Christian tries to make the plans look less concrete than they really are, but the trip is in 2 weeks and would last from mid-June to mid-July. When they get home, she confronts him for not telling her, and he fake apologizes. Realizing it's gonna be a fight, he tries to leave, but she begs him not to. She's trying way harder to make the relationship work than he is, because she still needs her boyfriend as an emotional crutch. Eventually, his guilt causes him to just invite Dani to Sweden to make things less weird, and she surprises him by accepting the invitation. She goes over to Mark and Josh's apartment to talk about the trip. There, you'll see a book on the table, The Secret Nazi Language of Uthark. And look, it's yellow. The Uthark theory is a theory about deciphering runic alphabets. It's part of the purpose of Josh's travels to Sweden. Learning about the runic alphabet is a big part of his thesis paper. The mention of the secret Nazi language is interesting. The word Nazi is short for this really long German word that translates to National Socialism. Socialism is the idea of collective ownership rather than individual ownership. If you've heard of the Nazis, you know that their main goal was to seize power, so they're technically not socialist. They're just using that in their title because it was a popular buzzword at the time in Germany, from what I understand. In essence, the whole situation isn't very different from how the Hårga elders named Reuben as the oracle, but they were still the ones to interpret his nothing burger paintings. So essentially, they had the power while making it look like somebody else held the power. Unlike the Nazis, however, the Hårga are full-on socialists. Usually socialism applies to the economic model. Socialists might collectively share land, money, businesses, etc. The Hårga have essentially expanded this to all aspects of life. They collectively share emotions, relationship partners, food, and living arrangements. This is a politics-free channel. I'm not trying to sell you on any political ideas, I'm just trying to explain why this book is here. The script is a little more overt about the Nazi comparison. Josh asks, are the Swedes sensitive about their history of Nazi collaboration? To which Pelle responds, are you sensitive about Hiroshima, or slavery, or the Trail of Tears? This could also potentially be connected to how bloodlines are handled. One of the villagers mentions that the elders are careful to preserve bloodlines, which was one of the main goals of the Nazi party, to create a master race. The cult in the movie is almost exclusively made up of people with pale skin, light hair, and light eyes. Lo and behold, the only outsider that they allow to survive is Dani, who fits right in with their genealogical traits. Anyway, as Pelle explains his homeland to Dani, he's the only one in the group that seems genuinely warm towards her.
You know, I'm very, very glad you're coming. I think it's very good you're coming.
He starts to bring up how sorry he was to hear that Dani lost her parents, but she gets choked up and has to leave to compose herself in the bathroom. It feels like he has a thing for her, and he probably does, but he doesn't get a chance to explain why he's happy to have Dani specifically joining them on the trip. We'll get to that. After once again being overwhelmed with sadness on the plane, Dani and the group land in Sweden and hit the road towards Hälsingland, where fear and loathing would await them. As Dani, Christian, Pelle, Josh, and Mark make their way to Pelle's commune, a sign overhead can be translated to "Stop mass immigration to Hälsingland." This is their first clue that they're not as welcome as they think they are as tourists. They take a rest stop where they run into some Hårgan people that Pelle knows who are also coming home for Midsummer, one of which is his brother Ingemar. This is not to say that Pelle and Ingemar necessarily have the same parents, but the cult is referred to as a family, as cults so often do to avoid suspicion. So everyone your age is considered a brother or sister, and elders are considered mothers or fathers. Ingemar also has two guests from the UK, Simon and Connie. They're all gonna take some magic mushrooms together, but Dani wants to wait in order to get her footing. Christian says that he'll wait with her, which upsets Mark, who insists that they need to take them at the same time in order to experience the effects simultaneously. Ari Aster is drawing a parallel here between the friend group and the cult. The cult experiences things like joy and sorrow together simultaneously. Notice how Mark doesn't object until Christian says that he's going to wait with Dani. Mark doesn't view Dani as part of their family, causing her to eventually feel more at home as part of the Hårgan family. In this case, Dani doesn't want to get in the way, so she offers to take the mushrooms alongside the others. Later on, they're chilling on the hillside, and Mark gets hypersensitive when somebody walks up to them.
I don't want new people right now.
No, new people are good, Mark.
Of course Pelle would say that. He literally needs to bring new people into the cult in order for their family to continue. Dani just seems kind of spaced out and dazed during all of this, until she sees grass growing on the back of her hand, textures moving on trees, warping landscapes, and the sounds of nature suddenly stopping.
You're like my real actual family.
When she hears Mark say that, I think she's pulled out of the moment and reminded about the tragedy that befell her own family, and she seems to think she's going to die. In a panic, she gets up and says she's going for a walk, eventually ending up in an outhouse where she sees the frightening image of her sister with the gas hose plastered over her mouth. This freaks her out and she runs into the woods and falls asleep, dreaming about her parents and sister. The next thing she knows, they're waking her up, explaining that they found her in the field 6 hours ago. But Christian doesn't wish her a happy birthday. The last part of the journey is on foot, before they come through the Sun Gate to find a picturesque village where they're greeted by flutists performing sweet folk music. Pelle introduces them to his sister, Dagny. It feels significant that the first person he chooses to introduce is a sister with a similar name to Dani, almost like he's demonstrating that someone like her could be a part of the family. Dani also attempts to respond to her in Swedish.
Tack.
A foreshadowing of her eventual ability to apparently communicate with the sisters in their own language. Next, Pelle introduces Father Odd, who tells each of the boys welcome, but for Dani, gives her a hug and says welcome home. Music directs their attention to a gathering under the giant maypole, where they toast to the beginning of the festivities. Later that day, all of the foreigners sit out on blankets as the villagers dance around. Dani watches as one of the dancing women, Maya, kicks her boyfriend in the side. He asks Pelle if he can join in, and he and Josh run off. Pelle takes this opportunity to give Dani a birthday gift, a portrait that he's drawn of her. He tells her it's just between them, and she has to awkwardly explain how Christian forgot that it was her birthday. Pelle is continuing to plant the seeds that Dani will be treated better as a family member of the Hårga than she is in a relationship with Christian. This seed continues to grow grow later that day when Connie asks how long they've been together, and Christian says that it's been about 3.5 years. Dani corrects him, explaining that it's actually been 4 years and 2 weeks, meaning that not only did he forget her birthday, but he also forgot their anniversary. Connie and Simon share that they're engaged, and upon hearing that word, Dani overreacts with excitement. While Christian hardly seems to pay this any mind, more interested in the triangle-shaped temple in the distance, which he's told nobody is allowed inside. Don't worry, man, you'll get your chance. Subscribers of this channel already know that this wasn't the first time a triangle was associated with secret cult activity in an Ari Aster film, as this was also something I discussed when covering Hereditary. I also noticed that Mark is using a vape throughout the film. To the Hårga, he's an outsider. In Hereditary, outsiders gather around the house of the Graham family, and similarly, we can see their breath, only in Hereditary, it is because of the cold. At the main house, Pelle explains the system of different age ranges being represented by seasons, and when Dani asks what happens after 72, he does a cutthroat motion. She laughs, thinking that he's just joking, completely unaware of the ceremony that would take place the next day. But before Dani's birthday celebration comes to a close, Christian finally remembers to wish her a happy birthday, unenthusiastically giving her a cake as he struggles to light the candle. The scene represents how the flame between them is dying, and literally between them in the shot, we see 5 women all nurturing a baby together as one. The shot visually demonstrates how the appeal of always having a family to care for you is coming between them and their one-on-one romantic relationship, even if Dani doesn't realize what's going on yet. Christian weakly apologizes for forgetting, claiming he got confused by the constant daylight. That daylight is blocked out at bedtime that evening so they can get some sleep. Dani sees a pair of scissors placed under a baby's pillow. It seems unsafe, and it is, don't try it. I was able to find a possible explanation for this. Some believe that placing scissors under your pillow can prevent bad dreams, which would make sense considering that they all sleep in one room and would probably want to avoid the baby crying in the middle of the night. However, this superstition seems to only exist in Egypt or China, and I couldn't find anything linking it to Sweden, so I kept searching. Eventually, I came across this scene, where Dani talks to a woman cradling a baby that is not her own. She explains that part of the reason that birth parents go away on pilgrimage is that the time away helps the babies detach, allowing them to be raised by the community. This comment by the Witch666 on Reddit suggests that the scissors under the pillow may symbolize the cutting or detaching from the parent, just as you literally cut the umbilical cord when the baby is ready to survive on his or her own. Pelle hints that there's a big ceremony the next day, and Dani's only clue is that it seems to be getting a big reaction out of Josh, the devout cultural anthropology student. However, he refuses to spill the beans. In the night, Dani awakes to the sound of the crying baby and sees the mural of a smiling man opening his wrist with a knife, while surrounded by smiling friends. Even the sun is smiling down on them. This would be her first clue about how this group feels about human sacrifice. They're proud of it, and it's a part of life. The next day, she takes notice as the villagers perform some kind of ritual, which is described as a dance class in the script. The group imitates the movements of the leader, which I see as practice for when they need to share the burden of a family member's emotions. Dani picks some flowers for Christian before that morning's feast, which she picked while walking backwards, just like the Hårga woman. She's showing more and more signs that she's assimilating into their culture. At this meal, special emphasis is placed on these 2 elders. After eating and performing some strange chants, they're led to the cliffside, where Dani and the other Western-hailing guests are in for a serious culture shock. Even before experiencing her first Ättestupa ritual, Dani looks nervous and uncomfortable. It's as if she knows that something is wrong, much like how she knew there was an issue after receiving that email from her sister 6 months prior. Aster is drawing attention to the similarities between the 2 scenes. There's even a character who breaks the 4th wall, just like Terri did in Dani's dream. When she sees the first elder jump, she gasps and grabs Christian's hand, and her entire world goes spinning. When the male elder jumps, he doesn't die, but instead breaks his leg at the base of the cliff, so the entire cult moans in agony alongside him until 4 of them go over there and finish the job with a giant hammer. This is Dani's first time seeing this concept of group suffering, and she would eventually experience it for herself. Connie and Simon are especially offended, so Siv, the family matriarch, tries to explain that the end of life is actually a great joy in their culture.
We view life as a circle, a recycle.
Then she makes direct eye contact with Dani, almost as if she's trying to sell this lifestyle to her.
It does no good dying, lashing back at the inevitable. It corrupts the spirit.
Given that she just spent the last half of a year in misery and mourning, this gives Dani a lot to think about, and she breaks off on her own during the hike back. Christian leaves her alone to cry, and she's so distraught that she struggles to even breathe. When she comes back to the commune, she begins packing up to leave, but Pelle shows up. Once again, Dani breaks down, telling him she doesn't know why she's here, and Pelle finally gets the opportunity to explain why he was most excited for her to come out of everyone. He tells her that he knows what she's going through because he lost his parents too in a fire when he was little. He's probably neglecting to mention that this was a controlled fire, another ritual sacrifice, but he's trying to show her that their way of life may be better for her.
I never got the chance to feel lost because I had a family here where everyone embraced me and swept me up. And I was raised by a community that doesn't bicker over what's theirs and what's not theirs.
This refers to Josh and Christian fighting over the ownership of their thesis idea and refusing to work together.
But I have always felt held by a family. A real family, which everyone deserves. And you deserve.
He holds her hands, and she becomes worried that Christian could walk in, to which he directly challenges their relationship, asking if she feels held by him. He's using their dying relationship to try to recruit her to the cult.
Does he feel like home to you?
When she does talk to Christian about these sacrifices that they witnessed that day, he tells her that he's trying to keep an open mind and acclimate, not realizing that he's actually encouraging her to do exactly what Pelle wants her to do. That night, she borrows a sleeping pill from Josh. She has a nightmare where she sees her friends leaving in the car without her. This is also where she screams out black smoke and visualizes her family dying at the bottom of the cliff. The pill causes her to sleep in, so she misses Josh discovering the love rune that Maya placed on Christian's bed, and Mark getting in trouble for pissing on the sacred ancestral tree. She's just waking up as Connie storms in to pack her bags, clearly offended by the idea of human sacrifice. Father Odd comes up and informs Connie that Simon went on to the train station without her, and that he'll be sending the truck back to get her, which doesn't really make sense. Dani is understandably disturbed by this and later tells Christian, but he doesn't react much, which shows his lack of empathy, especially in comparison to Pelle. He goes right back to interviewing one of the villagers for his thesis. Dani has this moment where she looks like she's realizing he isn't the guy she thinks he is. She wanders around outside the kitchen and is invited to come in and help. In this scene, Dani can be observed taking in the scent of this small sachet. We saw Pelle offer this to her earlier, saying that it'll calm her down, but she refuses it. As usual, the script offers more insight, telling us that it contains a special herb. Knowing what we know now, it can be assumed that this herb is meant to have some kind of effect, such as opening her up to the cult's influence. She goes inside and helps prepare meat tarts, but what kind of meat? And Maya can be seen setting one aside. As she takes them out of the oven, she hears screaming in the distance. At supper, Dani is concerned about Connie, who is now missing. She questions why Simon would leave without her, and tells Christian that she could see him doing that. The seating arrangement, with her between Christian and Pelle, mirrors their sleeping arrangement and represents her growing internal conflict. Which way will Dani go? Christian finds a hair in his pie, which Mark identifies as a pubic hair somehow. You'll also notice that his drink is a slightly different color than everyone else's. This all ties back to the so-called love story, a sort of comic on display in the village, where a girl mixes hair into a guy's food and certain bodily fluids into his drink to hypnotize him into marrying and knocking her up. This is Maya's plan for Christian. I'm guessing she has never read Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. Dani once again uses a sleeping pill to snooze through the events in the night. When she wakes up, the first thing she sees is Pelle changing. Surely this can't be a coincidence. At breakfast, one of the elders says that a book from the temple is missing, and Christian and Dani are confronted about their friends, Josh and Mark, who have also gone missing in the night. Christian tells them that he doesn't associate as friends or associates of Josh if he stole the book, further explaining that he'd be embarrassed to be connected to this in any way. How ironic that the one supposedly studying this culture for his college papers still doesn't understand that everything is communal in the culture. There's no personal responsibility in these people's minds. Dani is told to go with the women for the day's activity, and Siv wants to see Christian in her house. Christian seems to accept this as if it's out of his hands, and it's an awkward moment for all. This is when the yellow tea is brewed, the women are dressed in floral crowns, and Dani is given traditional clothing, the next step towards her integrating into the cult. They all join hands and circle around the maypole, and she gets very uncomfortable and sees grass growing out of her feet, just like when she took the mushrooms upon arriving in Sweden. As she's becoming more and more a part of the Hårga family, she's becoming one with nature, as their religion is deeply tied to nature in how they break their lives into seasons, wear clothing inspired by nature, etc. The rules are explained, and the Hårgalåten Dance begins. Not long into it, Dani straight up bodies some chick. If you're looking for it, Maya seems to fall on purpose, which would fit into the plan of her hooking up with Christian as the May Queen celebrations take place. Speaking of whom, Christian watches from the sidelines. When Dani makes the Elite 8, she looks into the crowd and sees everyone cheering besides her boyfriend. When the dancing starts again, Ula hands Christian a drink.
It's, sorry? Spring water with special properties.
She tells him it breaks down your defenses and opens you up for influence. dance. In that sense, it really is very similar to the herbs from Hereditary, the difference being instead of supernatural influence, it's psychoactive influence. I think a lot of people are quick to shout cinematic universe when it comes to Ari Aster, but if you think about it, nothing in Midsommar merits the existence of the supernatural or any higher power. Even when Dani somehow began speaking Swedish with the other contestants, it suggested that this is just a hallucination, and they're actually communicating through dance. In fact, in the script, they're actually just speaking complete gibberish. The last two Swedish girls collide and fall down, so Dani is declared the winner, but it wouldn't be long before the celebration would be cut short with crippling grief. Dani is crowned as the May Queen, which comes as a complete surprise to her. The celebration begins. Father Odd repeatedly tells her welcome, and Maya touches foreheads with her. This shows that Dani is being accepted into the cult. By doing what they do, she is one of them. However, she's still feeling the effects of the mind-altering beverage. Ingemar's eyes look huge. Then she sees what appears to be her father with completely mismatched eyes, and her mother passing through the crowd. Pelle kisses her on the lips. Now that she's been recruited to the cult, it's not weird because of how the family all shares their love for each other. There's no concept of belonging to a specific person. As Dani is lifted onto the pedestal, I'm fairly certain that's Terri standing to her right. Through all of this, Christian just watches in the distance, totally spaced out. At one point, Pelle had asked her if she felt held by Christian, and now she's literally being held up by her new family. There's some kind of meat being served at the feast, possibly their friends who were taken out the previous night. The meat has flies buzzing around it. One last time, I've got to mention how I'm reminded of Hereditary, where the body rotting in the attic attracts an insane amount of flies. From overhead, one of the platters looks like a woman, which is fitting considering what's about to take place. The May Queen is going to bless the crops and livestock, and Christian is going to impregnate Maya. Both are tied to the idea of fertility. The table, which has been rearranged to take the shape of various runes throughout Dani's time in Sweden, is now one straight long line, maybe for similar reasons to the shape of the maypole. Dani attempts to eat the lucky herring but doesn't get far, and everyone laughs. It seems fitting that she rejects the fish. A fish is often used as a symbol to represent Christianity, the religion. Dani's soon-to-be ex-boyfriend is named Christian, and she's literally moving from him to a pagan religion. Dagny, the first sister that Pelle introduced at the beginning, is also the first one to call Dani a sister.
You are the family now, yes? Yes, you are the family!
Pelle also makes a drawing of Dani as the May Queen. Previously, he stated that drawing portraits is something that he does for birthdays. This signifies how she's been reborn into her new family. Just as the family views life as cyclical, relationships also operate in a cycle. Dani's relationship has been dying for some time. But like an elder in a nursing home, this relationship's best years are already gone. The Hårga say goodbye to their elders before that can happen, and they do the same to Dani and Christian's relationship. A chariot comes to take Dani to perform the blessings, and she asks if Christian can come with her, to which Siv informs her,
"Nay, the queen must ride alone."
When they set off, the carriage is pulled by only women. And while she's gone, Christian is lured into the temple, where he finally succumbs to Maya's plots, along with several other women. It wouldn't be an A24 film without a bunch of creepy naked people, would it? When Dani returns from the chariot trip, she's told to go to Siv's house for a special meeting for the May Queens, but notices that something is going on at the temple.
What's that?
It's not for us.
She ignores this advice and goes there anyways, looking distraught, almost as if she already knows what's going on inside. This is the third time we've seen her freak out before a tragedy, which serves to connect this with the death of her parents and her witnessing the Ättestupa. She looks into the keyhole and confirms her suspicions, but this time, unlike the previous two, she does not have Christian to dump her emotional baggage onto. Instead, her new family is there for her, and they all share the burden of her heartbreak together. The sound of her wailing is just like what we heard after she found out that her family died, but this time it is echoed by everyone. Where Christian couldn't muster enough emotion to mourn with her when Dani's parents and sister passed away, the cult makes her feel connected and held. The entire scenario says something about cults in general. The members are often people struggling with a sense of belonging, and that need to belong clouds their better judgment. After Christian realizes what he's done, he runs out to find the remains of his friends before being captured and sedated. When he awakes, Dani stands upon a stage, having been completely covered in flowers, but still looking sad. This is representative of the love bombing techniques that cults have been known to use to draw in new followers. The final ceremony is to involve the sacrifice of 9 human bodies. 4 new bloods, which are Simon, Connie, Mark, and Josh, and 4 Hårga, the pair of 72-year-old elders, and 2 new volunteers. The 9th and final sacrifice is set to be decided by the May Queen, either a randomly selected Hårgan or her, at this point probably ex-boyfriend, Christian. The Hårgan selection is some guy named Tubion, who we've literally never heard of or seen before. This just goes to show how Dani's character arc is now complete. She no longer needs Christian whatsoever, and she chooses him to be placed inside a bear carcass and burned alive inside of the triangular temple. Since the 2 cult members who volunteered to burn were still alive, the entire cult emotes their suffering with them as the place burns down, and Dani joins her new family in the agony. The burning temple symbolizes the purging of her old life and old relationship. She is being reborn. Her trauma is being left in the past life, and once this realization hits her, all she can do is smile. The image is a catharsis for her, and Midsummer is a catharsis for Ari Aster, who has been open about the film being a vent for a breakup he was going through at the time. A breakup can be cataclysmic and turn your life upside down and almost feel like a death. I wanted to make a big operatic breakup movie that felt and played as consequential as the end of a relationship feels to the parties involved. As devastating as that can be, this doesn't have to be the end of our relationship, because you can check out my analysis on King Payman from Hereditary on the left. And you can subscribe to CZ's World for new horrors every week. Ring the death bell for notifications, yep, just like that, and I'll see you in the next one, assuming we both survive.